is it not when I left the office? Oh, here's something.
It's Gordon.
Hi Gordon, come on in. Just turning on, we're just pressing start.
I'm loving it, I'm loving it.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. Sort of a special holiday meeting of the Council on Aging Board here at Whittles Walk. So welcome everyone. While we do a quick round of introductions, I'm J.D. Miller, I'm chairman. To my left,
Linda Hayes, I'm the director of the senior center.
Janice Desmond, co-chair.
Gordon Price, Mr. November, and I guess I chair the Build a Campus Committee.
Elaine Shambari, FOSS liaison.
Susan Kelly, new member.
Caitlin Coyle, board member. Janice Lindblom, board member.
Leslie James, board member.
welcome everyone. I think everyone's got a packet of minutes from the last meeting, so why don't we take a minute to take a look at those. From our meeting on November 14th.
See, there was a thing in the calendar. And it's- I talked to Angela this afternoon. April 26th, the week before.
Okay.
It's new. Once they get up.
Yeah, a little
An
bit.
extension of my
Yeah.
normal day.
Just, am I out of order to say something?
About the minutes?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, hold on one sec.
oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Your
I don't know
question,
what,
Caitlin? Minutes?
Yeah, I just saw that. I'll help them out.
Yeah.
They can talk to me.
All right. Hold on.
everything I Robert's rules.
Joan was not coming. She said
Okay.
she did not need to come.
Maud
I
was
had
supposed to be
no-
coming.
Yeah, she said she responded at the beginning, and by the way.
My own note
Congratulations,
about
I saw
that,
that you
but
got an award in the paper.
I heard from her.
Joan
and
Powers.
Canterbury, that's what-
Yeah, right.
Oh, no.
I'm Elaine.
Oh, okay. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
You should just take it.
For all your hard work.
Okay, does anybody have any comments, edits, changes to the minutes? Sue?
So this is, it's not a big deal, but just to be accurate, so the Scituate 50+ group, I actually don't lead that group. I am the program director for the whole program for the state. It's a different person, Tony Rain, actually leads the group. And then the other thing is that the grant money has been in effect for 5 years, and it will continue on for 1 more year, and then we're going through transition into licensing. So
Okay.
it's, you know, just so that it's accurate, because it's saying that the program grant money was only for 1 year.
I can make those edits before
Yeah.
those.
Yeah. It's not a
I
big
didn't,
deal,
I didn't.
but
notice
it
that.
should be accurate, you know, because I don't want people to think that we
I
only
did
get
go over it,
one
but I
for
didn't get.
Hi, Lucio.
Hello, Lucia.
Sorry, interruption. Hello.
I was just writing up the minutes of
You
the
won't tell
parish
everybody
council
what's
meeting and had you absent. Now you're
I
here.
guess I just did.
At least I'm here.
Yeah, exactly, but I,
Not at the other one.
yeah.
Does anyone else have any other edits or changes? I have a couple of questions. But not edits. So who has officially replaced Norm as Shine?
His name is Rich Durkin. He is a Scituate resident. He has been a Shine counselor for, I'll say, a couple of years. I'm not sure if that's exactly accurate. He's been in Hingham before this. He was actually trained through the program, but also with Norman. So
Okay.
What's his last name?
Durkin,
Durkin?
yes.
So he's got his established hours now? Okay. Like Tuesdays, once a week?
Not that
Tuesday?
established.
Okay.
We were able to have him come to us more frequently than he
Was expecting?
had thought he might have to during the open enrollment. Moving forward, there was one date in January and one date in February, and that's really not enough.
Yeah.
So I will report, but I can mention it now. Shine is looking for a volunteer for Scituate. We're looking for a volunteer for Scituate who would go through training from February to May on Fridays, and then hopefully come to us and be able to
Be able
provide
to-
at least a couple of appointments a month to
Co-op with
offset
Rich.
Rich's.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, it's a lot, it's a
Absolutely
big
it is.
commitment, it's a
Yeah.
lot of information. I think it takes time to become expert. It's
I
always
agree.
nice if someone has a background, so
Yeah.
it is a little easier to.
Yeah, I agree.
What kind of background would they need, Linda?
It's the
Health-
insurance.
health
is-
insurance, it's-
Oh, is that what kind of stuff?
So it's Medicare.
Yeah.
Okay,
Medicare.
Where would the applications go if they wanted to do it?
They could come through us, and ultimately they'd go to the Shine program. There is a director of Shine out of HESCO in Dedham, I believe. No, it's not social elder
Really?
services. It's a different AAA, like social elder services, it just happens to be regional. So for instance, Mr. Marshfield, Duxbury, others are under Old Colony, but they go through Middleborough for the Shine
Really? Okay.
region, so.
Which is where that
More
one.
spread out. Peggy McDonough was with HESCO originally.
Oh, right.
But even, we'll put something in the newsletter, but we're not saying HESCO's looking for the volunteer, we're saying Situate Council on Aging is looking for the volunteers.
I mean, one thing I was gonna say, this is just an idea, I mean, maybe if there was a way to encourage people to, because I know how hard it is to find volunteers, to have it be part of the senior tax
Text
work-off
That was a
program.
question, it did come up,
Because that might
And
be
that
an
is possible.
incentive to get somebody to do it, because
It would be something, and that did come up as an option, if somebody had that background. So, anyway, that is
Okay.
consideration.
So Rich is on for now, and we need more help. How about, the second question is, has the town moved forward in terms of replacing Laura?
The job description may have been posted this week. They were working on it still last week, but it might have been put out there this week. So Laura Minier's social services manager, I haven't heard that it's a change in any way to the job that she had been doing, or the job title, so I believe.
Okay. But we're still
But it's-
posting it.
It's the health department and, HR for the town.
Yeah,
who are putting forth the job
okay.
opening. But if it is open, or if it is posted, it's on the town website.
Okay. That's just curious. Okay.
can I just add one thing? So with both of those situations, you might want to let Debbie know about it, so get her to make people in the Scituate group and the Marshfield group aware of it, because it could be somebody within the group
Sure.
that could be qualified that's looking for a job.
I had gone to one of the meetings last year to say that. It might have even been, it wasn't, anyway, just to say, check town websites, that they are always, and that
Yeah.
is the way they, that's the only way they advertise today. They don't post in the newspaper or.
Yeah.
But what groups are you talking about?
the 50-plus
Oh,
groups.
right.
You know, there's 17 locations in the state. 2 of them happen to be one in Scituate, one in Marshfield.
But is this a paid?
Yes. Yes, it's a
That
full-time
one's
position.
paid, but the other one, even if it's not, I mean, the senior tax work-off program is good.
For some, yeah, for some. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on the minutes?
I don't know, this is present.
Oh dear.
Or
It's not.
Oh, there. Oh, you're just missing altogether.
Yeah.
It's the two
Yeah.
Janices, that's why.
Good catch.
Well, we always, you weren't absent, but you weren't here. Oh, that's fun.
Do I ask for a motion to approve the minutes?
Hang on.
I make a motion to approve the minutes for November 14th as amended.
Second. Second. Okay, very good. But I think we're turning over to you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I will start out by just mentioning that, you know, I had attempted to have the list of all the board members' information and, you know, staff and liaisons, but then it needed some edits, which I had done. I just neglected to get physical copies to bring tonight, and then I don't think I emailed it electronically to you, so I will. And I've just found one more correction to be made, so if anyone has any corrections to the sheet that I had given out before,
Oh, why don't we pass that around?
pass that
Take-
around.
take the
I
reflection.
actually updated it already a little bit, and I want you to know that years, I put in years for your terms instead of trying to figure out the exact months that everybody started. I realized it didn't matter. It's just the years for your terms, and those are in there now. So, okay, we'll update that for next time.
And are the years, fiscal years, like according to the state? So are we in fiscal year
Technically, they are
20?
fiscal, yes.
Okay.
I just trust our buzz list.
We'll leave that one. All right.
She's gonna take the calls.
So what are we doing? You know, you have my report, of course, there, and I'll try not to read it verbatim, so as not to take a lot of time. But we have completed, finally, and I really, we're almost exasperated by the length of time that it's taken to hire an executive director for GATRA. So I had a couple of additional interview afternoons in November, and we were determined to either hire one of the newest interviewees or go with an acting director who was internal. We did hire, so it's just pending next week's advisory board meeting. So for some people who don't know, for the town of Scituate, I am on the advisory board for GATRA. And a lot of the advisory board members are COA directors from the 28 communities. There's some town planners, town manager, mayor, 2 mayors, but generally speaking, it has sort of become the COA. I mean, our town manager could go, but at the time, she was happy to have me go and continue, because we do have a relationship, and, you know, I am sort of the point guard, even though we don't run the public sloop, we use their resources and give them a lot of input in terms of how the community feels about what they're doing, and we usually get that feedback. So anyway, so that's next week, and then it will be official, let's hope, and we're done. And then there's a transition, and Frank will stay with us for a couple of months, at least. So last week was,
Before he can finally retire.
before he can finally retire, correct.
Can I, what does this do, is GATRA?
GATRA is the Greater Attleboro Regional Transportation System or Transit. So it's a regional, right now 28 communities, it's grown. A little bit like an MBTA, but for the outskirt communities.
Okay.
So they run the sloop
Yeah.
of the transit system, and they fund our transportation budget. So $106,000 comes to Scituate for the services that we provide through the COA for our fans. So last week was a busy week, speaking of budgets. Not only was that completed, but I met both went before the Board of Selectmen and the advisory committee separately. I think I mentioned in my last month's report that the budget for my formula grant was $52,080, and then when I got it, it was $52,008, and I thought, wow, they made a mistake. And then I realized I'd made a mistake. So, because I went and redid the math, it's $4,334 over 60 older adults, and I just put down the wrong number. So I spent $78 more than I had, but I had to adjust it. So I did resubmit it, and I'm mentioning here that that's the case. If anybody's interested, you know, that covers, as I mentioned before, a 25-hour salary and a 10-hour portion of a salary, so in essence, a full-time salary, which frankly, I'd like to get off for next time, or at least partially. I tried getting the 10 hours a week for Jill onto the municipal budget this time, and it was not the right time to do that. I'm hoping next year I can do that. And the other salary is the activities and volunteer coordinator piece, which I'll talk about later.
I'd like to see us continue to push for that.
I
I'd
mean,
like us to use formula grant money for other things than salaries.
Sure. Or at least partial salary, you know, or partial, I should say, part-time, 10-hour a week, 12-hour a week, things that we can
Like, but beyond the
have
existing
people
capacity.
do that, you know, don't really have a job description or a, let's say we'll need, for instance, a media communications person. That's sort of a new thing, and it's something we could use and we'd like to be able to pay for.
Yeah.
And that's something that could come up.
Yeah.
We also are trying to subsidize, and we've been subsidizing the Norwell VNA provided sort of physical therapy exercise that we do called Joint Efforts. They pay $3, we get charged $40 a class, so we probably make somewhere between $15 and $30 for each of those classes, so it's constantly subsidized. Just so that we don't have to charge too much, and it's good. I'm trying to do the same with the balance class and the men's yoga and chair yoga, partly because the men's yoga, we're still trying to build it. So if only 3 people come, which does happen, that's $30, and we are giving her more than that because it's a commitment. And the other is the chair yoga, which we charge $5 for, and honestly, I don't really want to raise it, but the other yoga is 10. It's still a significant commitment by the instructors. They're doing something very valuable for us, but yet, even if they have 11 people times 5, you know, well, that's $55. That's actually fine, because the $50 is sort of what people are looking for, but they would like to see it raised, and I just don't want to raise it, so we're trying to see if we can't work out where there's a subsidy, at least if they're not making the 50, that they might still. I'm still working on that. Anyone has any suggestions for that, I would be happy to hear them, because it's amazing. And then the newsletter mailing partial, MCOA conference dues, my senior center maintenance, and the volunteer luncheon, that all comes out of the formula grant every year. There was a time I could afford to buy the tables and chairs at the senior center, which I have done, but there's no more money for that since the staffing has increased. I also completed the annual report to the executive office, and that really is all about the numbers. 91 total volunteers, over 1,200, close to 1,250 unduplicated elders served, so many unduplicated non-elders served, what we might get in kind that we don't pay for, what our budget is from the town, et cetera, et cetera. So it's numbers that we collect mostly from my senior center and report. So in terms of the municipal budget, I did actually make copies, if you would like, just of the page that shows the line items for us. So actually, let me pass it down. And it is level funded for the most part. One of the significant things is we just paid for November's waste management, our trash pickup. Our trash pickup was upwards to $7,000 last year, which actually you're not. You are seeing that. So it had gone from, let's say, 3,000 to 35, and then he gave me more last year because it was, between $550 and we just paid a $650 bill. It's outrageous. We could pick up once, it's a small dumpster. So we were going to terminate and try to figure something else out, or have DPW do it, but I was able, starting in January, to get them to agree to take it down to $216 a month. I'm not sure.
That's a lot, I'd say.
It is,
That's a-
I mean, we were going to terminate, there was a fee, which was substantial, so.
terminate?
To terminate early, because we're under a 3-year contract, which is also not something, it was an automatic renewal, so this has been in place and not really scrutinized in terms of, should we be paying for this? Can we do it some other way? I looked at one other time, and then we just decided this was easiest. Long story short, it's going to be much less, so that is a significant change in that particular line item, which is the repair maintenance property line item. Otherwise, you know, electric has gone up too, but pretty much we'll make it with 3,700 if you can see that. Rentals and leases is to pay maintenance on the Rico copier, which we now own, but we still pay maintenance on, and our water cooler, filtered water. Comcast is the support services, so what we pay for intranet basically is what is covered there. And otherwise, they took off $1,000 of a request I'd made for postage. So I was splitting the postage for our newsletter between the formula grant and the municipal, and it got cut a little bit. So we may need some help with that. We'll try to cut it as best we can, but to mail the newsletter, we pay the mailing house that does it, General Graphics, to put it together to make it flat and nice and efficient, and then we pay for the actual postage. So it's fairly significant, close to 4,000.
It's a big piece.
Is there a way to cut down on the number of newsletters to go out, because they go through email versus?
We did, a couple of years ago, we started to try to cut down the list, and we did do it significantly, but then at the same time, we're trying to increase our exposure, so
Right.
then we just started saying yes, or encouraging people to get the newsletter again. Now, we don't even send it to anyone living in the housing authority, so we deliver it there,
Oh,
and there's
yeah.
a stack in the common room. We bring it to the library and the village market, and obviously have it.
I mean, because or maybe have people opt
Yeah.
to have it
Yeah.
delivered via email,
Yeah.
and then,
We could
versus-
put
Opt out
something like
postage.
that, maybe in the new,
yeah.
if we miss this newsletter, maybe the next one, and we'll start to pare that
Yeah.
down. Yes.
Yeah, go paper.
Yeah.
We were on it anyway.
Try to paperless, we still want them to see it, so it's.
So those
Yeah.
people who want to
Yeah.
get it via email will get it via email, and then it might open up.
Yep.
I mean, you know, it's available online, I mean, you
Right.
can save it and look at it, it's just not in the refrigerator. But,
You can print it out.
yeah, that's true, they could put that.
Yeah.
So anyway, the rest of the budget is ready. So our bottom line is 206,000 this year when asked. It's been more, but part of that is playing with the salaries a bit. So at one time, Laura Manera, who's now gone with the social worker, was under my budget. Now she's no longer, she's fully on the health department's budget. Kathy Clarkson, our transportation coordinator, her full salary can't go on the GATRA budget because there's just not enough money for that, but most of it is, like 65 or 68% went on the GATRA budget, and so the remainder is on our budget, but that still brought the budget down a little bit. Last year was 223,000, I think. So, and Jill is still part-time on the municipal budget, even though I pay her 2 more hours out of the grant, etc. So that's probably where that might seem to be less. Everything else is really level funded, except for the waste management. Okay, so I thought you might want to know what else. So other things that I did discuss with the advisory board was just the idea that although this is level funded, planning this year for the opening of the senior center next year, which in fact would happen mid FY21 budget. So just so you know, right now Jim, the town administrator, has the facilities department really supporting any increase in what the building will cost to open for us right now. So in the latter part of FY21, that's where that money will come from. After that, of course, we've got to start to build it into our budget. But my planning will involve developing the meals program for the first time. So that might involve a staff person in the kitchen, not to say we can't supplement with volunteers, Not to say that we couldn't maybe fund through the formula grant if we work something else out with the town on other salaries, or maybe there's another grant out there that I could get, but really to try to staff and probably fund also, you know, to subsidize it slightly. So even if we're charging for lunches, we don't want to have to charge for as much as it really costs to provide that service. You know that currently Social Elder Services does provide lunches 3 days a week up at the Methodist Church. But I would prefer to produce the lunches in-house, to have a kitchen and do our menu and our food ourselves, which is one model that really, I think, provides value to the town. Even though we could continue the other way, I think it would bring more people in. I think it would add interest
Yeah.
and so on top of that with the cafe. Now, I actually included for you, which I thought was interesting, just to go a little bit further after mine, an article that I received by email from a firm that did not apply as architects, but really a design firm elsewhere in the country, but trending now in senior center design. And we really meet all the, we're checking off all the boxes. New and improved buildings are the trend. It's not renovating or moving us into a school necessarily or something else. It's also fitness and wellness, which we've always known, actually, and we certainly have tried to make that a priority and continue to make that a priority. Although, when we had to abandon the renovation of the gymnasium building altogether, that was planned to be a fitness center more so, whereas ours is a fitness classroom. Even though we'll have some hand weights and do some strength training, it's a different thing than having lots of machines. We will have 3 or maybe 4 machines, so the plan might be recumbent bikes and regular stationary bikes and maybe a treadmill. We'll see. I'm not sure liability-wise what we want to put there, but we will have some. So, also the lobby cafe. So just the idea that even though it's been around, it's really going a step further, really, in a lot of senior centers. You've seen some of
A
them.
lot of senior centers have it.
Oh, yeah.
They do. And so ours is planned to be, certainly to come out of our kitchen at the same time simultaneously, so you have a choice. Let's just say the plan would be choice of a congregate meal 3 or 4 days a week, and the cafe 5 days a week. I will say Duxbury started to do a deli, and basically it just means that you can order up a full lunch, or they have a menu for the day, and you can get your sandwiches, again subsidized, so low cost. You can still sit there and eat a hot meal, but it's just a different kind of production, I guess. So there's different trends, but we're there. And then lastly, the new names and the new brands, which we're thinking we should be looking at least to see what the community feedback would be. So I just thought that's good. We're there. We're doing what we're supposed to be doing. So will we? All right. My other goals besides planning for the senior center and the meals program is to continue with my director certification, which is taking 2 years instead of 1. And in addition, the age-friendly, continuing to pursue the age-friendly and implementing the action plan that we're going to be writing in the next 6 months. So we have, next week, we're doing 4 presentations for centenarians. Individuals in Scituate who are over 100. So we are going to 3 homes or going to those particular older adults. Myself with a member of the Board of Selectmen with a proclamation and a pin, and they'll be represented on a plaque at the Senior Center, which will be displayed with the Boston Post cane, which is the historic cane, acknowledging those who reached the age of 100. We are also, I already mentioned that next week, the 20th, is our Christmas luncheon. In addition to the ukulele players putting on a little Christmas concert with a few songs. You can be late, it's okay. Then we're doing the presentation to Barbara Gillis's family, because she did pass away, but we already had this in the works, and it was just unfortunate. She passed away at 101, close to 102. And,
So can I ask, photos?
and the Mariner is coming with a photographer.
Can we get those photos to family?
Yes. Yes.
Family might be thrilled to see grandma,
Oh,
who's 100 years old.
well, some family is coming.
Being
One
honored.
woman is at Cardigan, family is going to be there. The other 2 are going to their home, and family will be there at their home.
Okay.
It's really, it's it's a nice little gesture and formality.
Yeah, very nice.
I've been starting constant contact email with the help of one of our volunteers here, Susan, but, so it's been a couple of weeks now. I was trying to do it weekly. I don't want to get people too sick of it too fast, trying to keep it short, trying to make it maybe highlights or a feature, something about the senior center progress, and leave it at that. So something different each time, so people would be inclined to look at it. I don't know if everyone's seen it. Any input, feel free. It's just, we're just starting to do it and learning along the way, but I think it's been helpful. I did attend the Veterans Advisory Committee meeting. They've sort of reconfigured.
Yep.
And it's a very nice group. They have Kim Stewart chairing,
Yep.
Which is great. But I had brought up the idea around Veterans Day, or before Veterans Day, that maybe we could have done a breakfast for them. A breakfast is put on at Scituate Country Club for them already at Veterans Day, so we just decided, we don't have to duplicate those efforts, but now they are interested. So February 26th, members of the VAC are going to attend. We're going to put on the breakfast at the Senior Center. It's more of an informational meet and greet, so hopefully veterans would come to meet the members of the Veterans Advisory Council. They're just coming to the Senior Center to do that, but it's a nice way to maybe hopefully connect. They want to be able to tell them what they think they'll try to do for them coming up this year, but also maybe what they need. They've got the Legion, they've got the VFW, they've got the sort of the Ladies Auxiliary, which is connected to the VFW, so, and they have some great ideas. So we talked about maybe doing twice a year and having a speaker at another one. They had some younger women come to the meeting, one whose husband was a veteran, and she's interested in supporting, and also one herself who was a veteran in the Marine Corps. Younger and is interested in being part of the committee. So really there's a range that they're trying to serve. So I think that should be good, again, as we gear up for the new senior center. Emergency management is beginning. We had our first meeting. I don't know if anyone here is involved in any of the volunteer efforts through the health department, through the MRC, or, as a nurse in the past. Okay, so the shelters will still be at the high school and then also at the middle school potentially. So that's been determined. And our role is really pre-storm for the most part, communication, and then communication with the first responders if we need them during. Hopefully not, but they do some transporting as needed for individuals who need to get to the shelter. All right. Tax work-off applications are now being accepted again for this year, which runs January through October, and then I've got to start talking to departments. I actually brought it up at the emergency management meeting because they were talking about all the paperwork involved in submitting after the storm to recoup and get reimbursed. And there's a lot of work. And I thought that sounds like a perfect opportunity for someone to put in some hours. So I had a lot of department heads in there at that time. So I hope they're good.
Linda, what's the total number of positions with tax worker?
I can take up to 25 applications according to the assessor, and that's based on the $1,200 that would be allotted to each of those individuals. But I didn't fill 25 this past year. I had about 18 who either completed or almost completed those hours.
And then if you did do it, do you have to reapply or?
With me officially, or we'll just communicate to you that they need or want to.
And we do have it up to $1,200.
We do have it. Yep. Yes, $1,200.
$100 times $12.
Well, then less taxes.
A little bit of a deduction.
Did we ever get anywhere with people help with the Meals on Wheels tax?
Well, that's something that I could begin now with this new set. So if there is anyone interested in doing Meals on Wheels, it was approved at least by our administration, not been really discussion with social other services, so we just have to work out the plan. It's their volunteer, but somehow we just get to know what the hours were. Yes. So I'll work with her, I guess, in trying to do that. Yes, thanks for asking, because yes, that is true. All right, well, Shine open enrollment, I know we already talked about it, but, so we are looking for another volunteer, but we you know, it's, I guess, a little bit hard to say on the numbers. We only take one-on-one appointments for Medicare questions that don't involve really the Medicare Part D prescription drug plan. Those things, or those individuals who need that help, and they're all encouraged to, submit their request to the Shine Council. The search is done offline really, and we really didn't collect that information because it might get done at home. Jenny does some of it, you know, we did a lot of that for them offline, or because we didn't have as many hours provided through the Shine volunteer, we have to send them to the helpline, to the Medicare helpline, to do some of that with them on the phone instead, or to other senior centers for that matter. So we think we really have the Shine Council meeting with about 25, 6, 7 people on site, but then there were many, many more that were helped offline just with the Medicare Part D. And that's just for the open enrollment period, that's all I'm mentioning. So that didn't sound like a lot. It was busy. We also did have the one-day presentation, which probably 25 people attended and were helped through that as well then. But yeah, it was too bad. We could have done more. We had a wait list. We really had to distribute them elsewhere to get their questions answered. So the senior center project was a good week for that too. So Monday night was last week was the Public Building Commission meeting where we voted on, heard from Steve about all the submissions for the general contractor bids, heard about a little something that happened with the sub bids for the roof repair. So they had to do a little adjustment to.
Simply as opposed to, they're just going to patch the roof as opposed to put a whole new roof on it.
Well,
On the gym?
that was
Yeah,
always
on
the
the
case. That was actually always the case, but they only got 2 bids, sub bids, which were due earlier than the general contractors. And the one that they could have taken was withdrawn because something was misunderstood, so it wasn't really accurate, and the other one was too high. So what Steve did, the OPM, was add an allowance to all the general contractors who were bidding for the roof repair. So it is just a roof repair. They were making the roof replacement an add alternate if there's any money left in the budget, unlikely as that might be. So, right, you never know.
Never know.
You never know. But,
Well, also, the roof was considered in pretty good shape.
Mhm.
So
Yes, there was a good
let's start
reason
from
why
a
it
good
was
position.
that,
The
yeah.
roof was considered to be in pretty good shape.
Yep.
So,
Yes, so, hence, anyway, so that was just a little bit of an adjustment. So those bids are due again. So it was put out again for the roof, they're due in December. But that was fine because the allotment was made in the GC bids. So I do tell you who won the bid. They are called Delphi Construction out of Waltham and Cape Cod. They were the low bid at $10,209.
10 million.
Million.
Sorry, 10 million. Oh, yeah, those big numbers though.
That would have
I
been
don't often
10,000
talk in
bucks.
millions, but I knew that.
Get them.
The next low bid was pretty close, and the others, there were 6 bids in total, so the other 4 were higher, let's just say. So contract completion is pending. The architect is actually working out the contract for the general
Oh,
contractor.
okay.
They're the ones with the design documents. So this is a little bit new to me. And then a meeting is potentially planned for next week, but in a informal, unofficial discussion between Steve and the contractor. January 3rd was thrown out as a date, so after the Christmas holiday, where we did think it might be December, because why not? Once they get the contract signed, basically it's a 365-day job, but it is a hard time to get everybody on board, so unofficial date, I don't know if that will
So
actually.
that's great news.
It is great, it's all,
John was very worried that he has to go back to the town.
that's true. Right. The low bid was great news.
That is wonderful. And I have a question about this. I know that before in the long-term planning committee, we talked quite a lot about having a gym in there or having more equipment to attract more the younger seniors. And I know that it seemed like it wasn't, now I hear again that it's just a few machines.
It's not a fitness center.
What
with-
is
it's
the
not a
reason
health
for
club.
that?
Room, partially.
Space.
Okay.
And
Liability.
15,000 square feet went very quickly.
Yeah.
It's not really a high priority at this point. It would change things altogether for the senior center. And we thought at the time we were designing the senior center that at least those adults would be accommodated through the recreation piece of it. And then, of course, that hasn't
In
happened
the
yet.
same-
Now, that would be a goal moving forward.
And is that gonna happen?
It may.
I just think it's a really good way of attracting younger
It would
adults.
absolutely be, but it
Or
was,
seniors,
it was
really.
not more than some of the other things that we do, because we're not a health club. I mean, wellness and
I
fitness is
understand, but
definitely a
even like
priority.
in this,
Yeah.
in this note that you gave us from the planners, it's
Mhm.
like talking in there a lot about, you know, the designers
yeah.
and how that's a real big trend.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll accommodate what we can initially and move as quickly as we can to another phase that might accommodate that, because the gymnasium building is still available and
Right, okay.
unrenovated.
Okay.
I mean, there's space there that ultimately you hope is going to become usable.
Okay.
Isn't it a good marketing tool to just say we can cross over
Yeah.
to the, you know?
Yeah, I think
and then
so. I think
that's
it's
a good-
really important, especially
the whole
like you're doing a
campus,
cafe and you're doing this, you know, so you're catering to different groups of people.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
But, I mean, likely the recreation department is gonna go for a larger project on their own.
Right.
And
And that would
I would
be
think
to
that
our
town people
advantage.
at that point would say, yeah, make this multi-use
Yes.
Mhm.
and, you know, allow for equipment that.
Yeah, yeah,
It was a great design, that first one.
right.
Linda, how much room, I mean, is there a room that's been allocated as like the fitness room?
We have a fitness room on the second floor, which is about 850, 900 square feet with mirrors. And then behind that is a smaller area where we put the cardio machines. So we wanted to extend that a little bit, just, you know, the TV. And then behind that, or across from that, is the activities game room, which would have some stationary pieces like a pool table, let's hope, but others that can be folded up like a ping pong table or the card tables, and then there could be space there. Also, the multi-purpose room has always been the secondary fitness room. Do you know what I mean? So it's dividable. You know you're going to allocate that at times for simultaneous exercise. So that was always the expectation. Larger dance classes or anything that's.
Yeah, more yoga or
Oh, believe me,
whatever.
anything. All right, I'm taking too long, as always, sorry. And one other thing, so January 9th, I just thought I'd mention, a man had come to me. Nice to have the connection and nice to have the interest if someone wanted to do something with us. But anyway, it's a men's group, which Gordon is part of as well. But anyway, they had an idea for a speaker. So we're having this speaker, Andrea Miller, come January 9th to talk about the 10th Mountain, the Army 10th Mountain Division, who were skiers who were trained in World War II, and then went on after the war to open several of the ski areas that exist in our country, really, in Colorado and others. So it's fascinating.
Yeah.
So she's coming to talk about it, show a video about her father was one, that's why she's so familiar with it. And she's bringing some artifacts and some different things. So it should be a really great.
Interesting.
So we're making a breakfast in lieu of our own men's breakfast, just a combined breakfast. And that's a really nice event.
What day is that? What kind of
That
day?
is on
Probably
a
Thursday.
Thursday, January 9th. Okay. And we can talk a little bit later about the age-friendly pavement. So let me move on to Kathy Clarkson, Transportation Report. Again, we had the pleasure of her company last month, so I think you get a chance to ask some questions and understand what she was reporting off the numbers. We're still serving a lot. I think I reported to the advisory and the BOS, you know, 8,000, over 8,000 rides. I think that was about 250 more or less individuals throughout the year, but that we continue to serve. We do serve some under 60 as well as over 60. And that's the breakdown. So a little bit less in November than October. But not tremendous. She's doing a great job, the rides. considering the needs of the regulars who do take transportation to get their shopping done and their errands done, and trying to meet their extra needs going out of town for some trips, which I think is nice and we want to do. So. And then for outreach as well, so again, it was a busy month, both October and November. So service interactions, which could be any way that Jenny ends up meeting or helping, meeting with or helping an individual. So almost 60 times meeting with somebody during the course of the month. 35 individual seniors were met with or spoken to or assisted. And I will say that in terms of categories like fuel assistance, Medicare, of course, so actually if I look at that number, Medicare and Social Security, for her, it wasn't a lot, but those three could have been the drug searches that she might have done for people, in addition to what Rich did as well. But even someone has come in recently, and Jenny, she's not there, he says, who's that other girl that looks like her? We all look alike. But anyway, it was me, and it's just someone who is used to having her help with a couple of bills. Just being sure that the money was completed correctly, that the invoice is what it's supposed to be, and it's a lot of that. She does a lot of home visits, or even people who bring their paperwork in and need some help with just document management and organization, whether it's for bills or what does this mean from this particular provider, and they don't know. Comcast is a maze, so what they're paying. I would really like to see some advocacy done for reducing the bills that seniors who aren't using any of those, resources really,
Right,
internet, phone,
Yeah.
all the way through. There's no way they should be paying what
Right.
they're paying, and I've seen that happen.
And they have a monopoly here.
They do.
And I've tried all kinds of other things. It doesn't work.
And it's another language, so they really can't advocate easily on the phone. Some who are just say, well, that's what I have to pay. And it's not really, I don't think it is what I pay or should be. So, other people are coming off cable who are knowledgeable enough to use some of the other resources to get the programs that they want to have. So, more of ours are not. Anyway. And then lastly, so Lisa had organized a great trip just yesterday, so we decided to just have her put together a review of the trips that they went on this past year. And it's funny, even my senior center collected data about trips throughout their network a couple of months ago, maybe October or September. And all senior centers' numbers are up in terms of trips. It's a real draw, whether we're doing trips or they're doing trips in their own vans with their drivers, semi-locally or into Boston, cultural trips to museums, or now tending toward the larger buses, and either longer trips or just more comfortable, or just larger numbers. We can take 12 or 14, and they can obviously take 35 to 50. And yesterday's trip into the Boston Pops and to lunch and to see the lights around the city was 2 coach buses filled, and it was Norwell and Scituate. Now she's partnered with both Cohasset and Norwell on a variety of some of these trips you see, and they are each taking turns organizing, so someone from Cohasset or Norwell or Lisa from here. And we did have a volunteer go as a chaperone yesterday, because as much as we all wanted to go, it was a long day. They were leaving at 10:30. They got back. I saw the bus come back at 10 of 8. That was a long day. Nobody complained. I'm not sure if anybody slept. But some of the...
8 o'clock.
Oh, she did go. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so it was really nice. So some of the planned trips is at the bottom of the page. So Encore Boston, if people haven't been, I'm sure that would be a big one. Tour of Fenway Park, maybe to Providence. And one of the restrictions we've somewhat had with our Gatra van, so we have one van that we own, as you know, but it's getting old. It looks old, it's needing more repairs, and it's not that comfortable. The Gatra vans are, but they're not supposed to be used for excursions or field trips. That's kind of part of the use of the state money versus what private entities expect to have opportunity for. So I have to always ask permission and see if it's really something that thinks is fine. But recently they needed Norwell had planned a trip to the State House, and then their van broke down, they couldn't do it, and they asked us, and couldn't really, I mean, of all places, the State House, couldn't really send the gantry van to the State House. I mean, I asked, but he's like, the State House? So he, actually Frank, our buddy, but the gantry director, he did, he rented a van for us to use, paid for it actually, so in addition to our 106,000, we got a little more this year from Santa, because, you know, we had some people who were looking forward to going, so there were about 10 from Norwell, about 8 from here, and that's what they were able to do, so it was very nice.
And then what's the sort of age of the people that go on these trips? What is the sort of average age?
Well, actually, that probably draws people who may not often take advantage of some of our services, so a little younger, and
Okay.
interested in the trips where they're not driving, parking's taken care of. So
Okay.
I can't say specifically, but probably in the mid to late 60s to maybe 80s. It's still a wide range, but yeah, younger people are definitely interested in that. It's fun, it's great. I went to my first opera while on the senior center base 10 years ago.
And they're always on a weekday?
Mostly, and they don't necessarily have to be, and maybe we'll start dipping our toes in that. I think we did a trip on Saturday once, and there have been some things that have come up, but not often.
Are you still doing Marshville things?
Station 8?
Yes. Very good.
Well, we did advertise that, and a few of us had gone to an evening outing. We didn't use the van for it, we didn't need to. It was just securing a table and just letting them know that we had a group coming to listen to the a cappella group that was at Station 8.
Yeah,
It was
it's music.
great. It was
Yeah.
great. So it is happening next Wednesday night as well, as a matter of fact, though I did not make a reservation yet. And I guess that is it, I believe, unless people have questions, but.
Does anybody have any questions? Good report. Why don't we hop into FOSS activities?
We just completed our Christmas fair,
Christmas fair, yeah.
November 30th. It was quite successful. So we're now going to wind down for January and February. Start back up with activities in April. But that was quite successful, and we've been successful with the calendars, but that's Gordon's report. I do have some questions that were brought to, that I was asked to bring to the board
Okay.
concerning the senior center. And do you know what has been eliminated already from what was planned originally? Was the question was raised that there were-
Spatially? Spatially.
Within the project?
within the building.
Nothing.
Well, there was
It's
a
intact.
question of a sliding wall in the upstairs room, and that was changed to a permanent wall.
It was never added, it was discussed, and we chose not to put the sliding wall into a program room.
So there is a permanent wall in there.
Yes.
Just out of curiosity, why?
It's an expensive option, and really initially I didn't see the need for whatever the cost, and attributed to that was it.
Is it something that,
We have the multi-purpose room for that reason.
They don't have-
Yeah,
they don't have-
There is a room that has one.
And there's some flexibility in the way the rooms are used in the second floor, so I think the number of rooms was important, and the way the rooms are configured is important. There's not a lot of wall space anyway. We end up with a TV, large TV in each of the walls for presentations, and the seating is important. The arts and crafts room holds enough people, 20, 24 people, so we're happy with the sizes of those rooms.
so it's not something that
So we did not
You
add
look
structurally
for-
add.
funding from
No,
FOSS to,
No, it's not in the design now. It's not in the design.
And there is a room that
The
has,
design stuff.
there is a room that does have
The big room.
a sliding door. The
Oh,
sliding
that's
door.
sliding.
the question at the general meeting was that they thought it would be a good idea for what the upstairs room. I'm just relaying the question and getting an answer.
Okay.
Also, question about a sound system. Is there one planned?
Yes.
Okay. Okay,
The sound in every room. especially the multipurpose one, it's
Okay.
already designed.
Okay.
And it's a good one.
Yeah, wasn't that sort of
Yeah,
advertised as being very tech savvy?
Tech and with like people with hearing impairment, they're really
Does
good
it-
now about being able to hook it up to people's
It's,
hearing.
because it hasn't, it's caused a problem with a lot of the seniors attending functions that they haven't been able to hear.
Sure,
Yeah.
because we don't have the resources right now, and of course we will.
But that's why the question came up.
Very good.
I don't have the tech specs or whatever on my,
But it is planned and it's a good one, so that's, okay.
That's important.
Thank you.
Okay.
Now go ahead.
Now, Gordon?
I don't have anything to say.
That's
Are
never
there still
happened.
calendars available?
That's never happened.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I love one.
It's been a very busy 2.5 months, starting, I guess, in my notes here, early October, when we started to really dive into the calendar project. Well, before I get, I want to talk about a couple of other things. We were very pleased with the Mariner article and the photos. When I talked to Thompson, I had no idea we were going to be on the front page. We were going to be buried in the third section, fourth
Are you
page.
kidding? Why would you
fourth
think
page.
that? Front page
I didn't
material.
know, I didn't know how the editor or whoever was in charge was gonna, I never talked to him, I talked to Ruth and Jerry and I talked to Ruth on 2 occasions, so we were very, when I got a phone call saying, we're on the front page of the Mariner. Plus she was on a deadline, a short deadline because it was the Thanksgiving week. So she called me on Friday, she said, we gotta talk either today or tomorrow, because I gotta get this in by Sunday noon if it's gonna hit. She said, well, we can do it the following week. I said, no, we got the Christmas fair with that
Yeah.
week.
Oh, yeah.
We really wanted to try to get into the week, so she did a marvelous job, it was a great article. We had a lot of good comments on it. So, yeah, the calendars, they've been going well. We printed 1,000, costs were about $4,300, about $4.30 per calendar, so we'll make just over $15 per calendar if we sell them all, so somewhere around 15,000. We sold 24 sponsors, 24 full sponsors, and 4, I think, lesser
Yeah.
sponsors, so that brought in another couple $1,000.
Yeah.
So, we could be looking at $17,000, $18,000 if we sell them all.
so could I just ask, because someone asked me, but the sponsors, was the money from the sponsors used to reduce the cost of what the calendar,
I'm sure.
the expense of the calendar?
Basically,
Or was it?
yeah.
So it didn't actually cost $5 to print, it cost us $5 after sponsor money? Or you?
Cost us $4.30 to print per piece.
And the sponsor money was used to pay.
To pay that time?
No, we didn't think we were going to get more than about 12 sponsors, we ended up with 24, we were on 200 page, which was great. So a lot of people helped with that. We have about 700 calendars out in circulation right now. I would say of the 700, we've probably gotten money back on about 250 of them, maybe 300. So Jerry and I and Elaine and Sandy have devised a plan where weekly we'll go around, we have a list of ones that are assigned to us, and we'll go around and resupply them. We have, as of yesterday, we've got 2 more people who want to
So
calendar.
locations, you're saying, in
Yeah.
circulation? So what are the locations?
We have 25 locations.
Okay.
We were thinking we would get 10 or 12. And what was happening is every day somebody would call
And
me,
but they're right at the back
call me or
tables.
call Sandy, and say, we want some calendars. Like yesterday, Sandy told me Driftway Hair, over here on Driftway, wanted calendars. McGill and Gardner has agreed to take some.
So they're all over the place.
Sand Hills is too.
Yeah.
Kennedy's was very interesting when we shot Chris Kennedy's photo. He said, I'll do a photo, I don't want anything to do with having these things in my business. No way are they going to be in my
They're not
business. And about a week after they were out in circulation, Chris texted me and said, bring me some calendars. And I went over, it was a week ago, Saturday, and he was out in his area helping people, and he reached into his pocket, and he pulled out his pen, he said, I'm getting people coming to my business with their calendar, wanting me to autograph.
Oh, my God.
And I'm having people come and ask me if I have calendars.
Yep.
So some people that we didn't think would take them, took them. Some people, I got a call just before I left the house tonight from Hennessy News, for the third time, they're just about sold
That's
out.
wonderful.
So there are some places that are doing real well, some places aren't doing quite so good,
I
so.
don't know who we know besides me in Duxbury, but my girlfriend texted me the calendar because she said she went to the Duxbury Business Association meeting and she won it.
She
So-
won it.
And, you know, it's going all That's right.
I'll just read
Somebody
them
went
off,
to
I'll
that.
read them off quickly. Vision Source, Joy, Coffee Corner, Reynolds, O'Brien's, Cosmos, Stacy Stitches, and we will be at Stacy Stitches tomorrow for the North Scituate Christmas Fair between 4 and 7. She contacted Denise, said, could you bring me some calendars, and could you maybe get a couple people here to autograph them? So Nels may get an email from you tonight if he's available. So I said, yes, we will have a couple of people there. Karen Rico, Liberty Bay, amazing. They sponsored. Jill called me yesterday. She said the CEO, CFO wants 25 calendars because we're having a big board meeting next week, and he wants to give all the board members
Love
a
it.
calendar.
Love it.
So some people are really responding. Ronnie at RNC Farms, Harbor Pizza, CP's, McBrien's, McGill and Gardner, Hennessy News, Maria's, Scituate Pharmacy, Untold Brewery. We were successful in getting them into Untold. Jerry and I went over one day, and the girls pouring beer said, I don't know if, the boss would want them. How about if we just leave you 12 and we'll come back tomorrow and see whether he is okay? He was fine. So, Scituate, Sam's, Galley, Ronnie Shones, Adamo, Kennedy's, and Driftway. I think the places that we're seeing are doing well are the restaurants and the bars. People sitting around.
Of course.
We were here the night Doc Ellis played for the pre-Thanksgiving party, and we sold 19 that night. It was all people, Janice's age and younger. People would walk over and get one, they'd go back to the table with their friends, and their friends would come over and want one. So really, I'm pleased with the reaction, and if I would love to think we might have to print another 500. I don't know if we roll or not. We'll see. It will taper off as the buzz kind of wears off, but right now it's going very well.
Great.
Did you hear from Marie Fricker from?
I did not yet, but interestingly, I ran into her boss. I went over to talk to Brian, who owns the Galley. He was at the Red Parrot. I said, I'll come over and talk to you about putting calendars in the Galley. And the man who owns the business now is at the bar. And he introduced himself to me.
Oh, it's
And-
what business?
Is it
South Shore
South Shore
News.
Senior News?
South Shore
South Shore
Senior, yeah,
News.
Senior,
Yeah, so he
yeah.
mentioned the name of
All right, yeah.
Marie and said she would be in touch with me. I
Yeah.
haven't heard from her yet. We also, Leslie, Senate, God love Leslie and Jerry. They're incredible people. I know Linda already knows. They've gotten us hooked up to PayPal, so calendars can be purchased online, and donations can be made to build the campus, Foss Builder Campus online. And we've had, as of yesterday, 4 people who ordered them online, one from California.
It was right here.
Sure,
I know, I didn't even know they were anywhere else.
Yeah, so I think online will work pretty well.
Yeah, I got them today.
Did you get it today? Wow,
And we're
just yesterday.
And Leslie is continuing
I was
every
waiting to see
few,
someone in my mailbox.
continuing every few days to
Dropping
put
them.
something on social media. And we came up with an idea at our meeting Tuesday that we'll probably highlight a couple of the models. Maybe every 2 or 3 days we'll put another 1 or 2 on with a little
Story,
history.
yeah.
Just to kind of keep the buzz going. And God love the band. The band is just, and I think they've enjoyed it.
Yeah.
We've enjoyed working with them.
And they're all
And
good.
they've really brought a lot of notoriety. We were looking for any events that we can possibly be at in the next few months. The thing with the calendars, I don't think people are buying it as a calendar. They're buying it as a novelty piece and as a donation. So I don't think sales will stop on December 31st. I think they'll slow down, but they won't stop.
Can I just ask a question? I mean,
We have an online interview at WATD next Thursday morning at 8:30. I think it's a half an hour show. Denise contacted Ed Perry, who we've known over the years, and he said, "Oh, put you in touch with my production people." He got to Denise yesterday and said, "Yeah, we'd love to have 2 or 3 people come over. So next Thursday at 8:30, we're going to do an online, a live interview about the project and the, not just calendar, but the whole fundraising effort. And social media we'll keep up with, online donations. We've had a couple, I think maybe 2 or 3 RMDs required minimum distribution donations made. We're going to try to promote that in the next week or two. When I went to Fidelity to do mine, the guy at Fidelity said, 80% of these get done in December.
Yeah.
And a lot of them in the second and third week and even fourth week in December. So we're going to try to promote that a little bit more online, see if we can get a few more of those. It's a wise thing for people to do if they've got to take money out. What else? The next, there are really 2 things we need to start to ramp up with soon. And one is naming opportunities. We'll sit with Linda and probably under Joel or whoever else will need to be involved with that. And then obviously, I know we can take that to the selectmen to get their approval. But I think a big bulk of the $1.7 million that the library was able to raise, I would bet close to $600,000 or $700,000 of it came in naming opportunities. And I know that there are people out there who would love to do that. So we need to kind of make that a priority to kind of feel that out and maybe talk with the library people, have the library people come and talk to us about it and see how they approach the whole thing. But it's a pretty sophisticated process, and you just can't go in and you've got to have things to show people. You've got to have a nice brochure, and you've got to have explanation of what's going to happen. And so there'll be some money involved in producing it. But that's okay. Our kitty is starting to build up now. So that, and then the spring event, which we have kind of termed the junior-senior prom. And I think that could be a really good fundraiser. And this article that Linda passed out talks about trying to attract some of the younger seniors. This is why we were thinking of it as kind of the junior-senior prom kind of event to try to attract maybe some of the 50s and 60s and maybe even younger. I'm pretty sure we're going to have Doc Ellis as our featured band, so we're going to talk to the guys about. I know they're available because they said they were. It'll be a really well. It was May 3rd. We've got 2 of the kind of prime people on the Build a Campus committee who have serious conflicts on May 3rd. Well, I talked to Angela today. She finally got back to me. The only other date she has available is the Sunday prior, which is April 26th. She has nothing in June, July, or August because it's weddings and everything else. So we may have to, I'm going to poll some of the people in my committee today. She wants an answer by tomorrow. She said she knows she can fill May 3rd with a wedding if we're not going to take it. And so she wants to get a commitment from us. So I think it's probably more likely going to be April 26th. And I think we were talking like 4 to 9, or 5 to 9, 5 to 9, something like that. At the River Club.
Oh, nice.
And the reason for, we looked at the River Club, we looked at Parker.
Sandy's saying it's like 4 to 9, 6 to
Huh?
10. 6 to 10.
6 to 10, okay.
Yeah.
The River Club holds, without a dance floor, which we would have a dance, with a dance floor about 250, 260 people, whereas the Barker is like 175.
Yeah.
And the cost to us, the organization, for the meal, it would be mostly past hors d'oeuvres and stuff, is about $34. And Angela cut us a deal, which she's really very helpful to. She can't, you can't knock them. She's about $15 less than what we would pay at the Barker. So for those 2 reasons, we're really thinking River Club.
Yeah.
And it's a nice facility.
Yeah, it's
And
great.
it's a nice facility to have a music event, to have
Yeah.
music people there, the stage and everything.
Right.
So,
They did a great job for the Thanksgiving.
yeah, we're away in California. I wish I could have been there.
It was lovely.
I heard great
They
things
did a
about it.
great job.
Yeah. So, that's only like 4 months away, a little over 4.5 months away. So that's going to take a lot of planning if we're going to make it, a really successful event. And we'll be leaning on most, if not all of you, to help us out with that. We'll need sponsors, we'll need, we'll probably have some auction items. We think when we were at the we were at the, what fair were we at? At St. Mary's a week or so ago, on things we've been attending. The FOSS Fair, most everybody from the calendar was there signing. It was such a success, it was amazing. So we're kind of going through it. Somebody said, why don't we just sign a bunch more? So I've got about 60, I think, calendars that are signed by most everybody. And maybe we parlay this to, make us a little bit more money and auction them off or sell them off at a higher price or something, I don't know. And I've got 6 Mariner articles. I've got 6 Mariner articles too. And we've got people sign the Mariner articles and frame them and auction them off. So,
Right, or an evening with Gordon.
oh, with his clothes on,
Yes, absolutely.
not holding a chainsaw.
Gordon, we should move on.
Yeah,
Yes.
so anyway, so that's what we got going, and a lot of stuff. We're
Very nice.
Good at moving along.
Excellent.
So yeah, we have, this meeting is a sort of a holiday, so we have some food coming. I want to just finish quickly here. I'm going to sort of table our discussion on associate members because Janice and I are going to work on that and talk to some people that we think are candidates that have already put in an app. Senior Center project you've touched on.
I have.
I was gonna just completely unrelated to anything, but also maybe something to keep in mind for Marshfield, since you're going to ATD next week, is the town of Marshfield has now been approved for a new renovation in their council on aging. Addition.
Yeah.
So they're gonna put in a 15,000 square foot addition to their already 12 to 13,000 square foot space. And they're gonna end up with a over 25,000 square foot building. And they've been approved and they passed it. So they're chomping at the bit to get going down there too, so.
Is it a gym now? I heard that,
That I don't know, but they're gonna put.
I heard from somebody that put no at a gym.
Yeah.
Like,
So they're following right behind us, 15 years after they put their first one in with a 15,000 square foot doubling in size.
If you build it, they will come, and also their numbers for the town of Marshfield are that much larger, so proportionately,
Yeah.
it's warranted.
Yeah. Maud put in a specific request. Did you want to give us a little bio since Maud's a new member, or do you want to do this over dinner? Or
No, it's just, I'm a new member and I know some people don't know me that well, so I just wanted to introduce myself a little bit. And so I'm actually from Holland. I grew up in Holland and went to school there. And then I went to India and Bangladesh. So I did quite a few years of volunteer work in India. I did healthcare teaching, worked with pregnant women, and mainly all illiterate people. I worked with Mother Teresa for a while as well in orphanages. And then I came back and taught English. And then when I came to the US, because I have family here, so I changed my profession to nursing, so I became a nurse practitioner. I have been working at the VA for the last 7 years, mainly elderly people, so a lot of veterans are over. Worked in geriatrics, palliative care, hospice care, and also a few years ago I went back to school. I'm one of these people who just loves to study. And, so I did my doctorate at Yale, and there I learned how to research. And this has been very interesting for me because it had a really big change in my own life. Like, I'm now super research based on everything. How far should you live near your family in order to add another 5 years to your life? That type of stuff. Actually, it's
much farther than you
20 minutes, no, 20 or 30 minutes close to the family. In other words, to family that's supportive. What should you eat, how much should you exercise, all that. And that was one of the things I was interested in for the Council of Aging. Caitlin and I worked on the long-term planning committee. We did quite some research together as well, so we're sort of on that scene. What really interested me is long-term, what are the trends in aging? The baby boomers that are all coming of age, which are, again, a different sort of generation. And, you know, as well as focusing on Scituate, so I wanted to sort of look at data on that, like how many people can we expect in the next 10 years, what would their ages be, you know, what are their interests and stuff. And I'm also very interested in blue zones, you must have heard about that. And so there's some towns in Florida actually that became blue zone. So anyway, these are sort of my interest, and I'm still working full-time, which isn't that easy, but like to help out, so.
Well, when we break, people can, you can introduce yourself again and.
That's all right,
so.
I just wanted to start, I know last time Susan talked about her
Oh, yeah.
thing, so I wanted to give people a bit of an idea.
Yeah. So the last two, this board still needs a co-secretary. I'd like everyone to, unless anybody wants to put their name in the hat right now. So we have, it would be a split, right?
Yeah, we have somebody doing it, Leslie's doing it.
Right.
So we do need,
So I'm doing it
and this is our
Either
board,
6 months
so-
or odd numbers of
Right.
months.
Okay.
And so does anybody feel they can,
And what is
Take
it
it.
involved?
Just,
to take the minutes of this meeting,
Minutes.
of these meetings?
and they're-
Maybe every other meeting.
and they are being recorded, so sometimes it's as easy as sitting at the computer and listening to the meeting over again, if it wasn't as easy as it should be to record. And it doesn't have to be verbatim, it really is just general highlights of the meeting, what was discussed, not every word that was discussed, so
That's just to think about it.
we would,
It's very hectic at work.
I would do it, except that I was nominated, I'll put it in quotes, to be the secretary for the parish
well,
council.
it's only every other month, and it's, you know, it's an hour meeting, right? And I always look at, you know, you can get it to me, and I'll format it up, it doesn't, don't mind doing
Okay,
I'll let you know.
okay.
And really, it's probably from now until
that.
July.
June, yeah.
June, July, August.
So what happens
Because
after
we've got
July?
new board members coming on, and we will look at, members of, you know, positions again. So we do need somebody to help Leslie, the manager.
Did you want to touch on age-friendly or liberal?
Well, I think not in the interest of time, but I did bring a sample of the surveys that we're hoping to start to distribute, and a few little rubber wristbands that say Scituate Senior Center and Live Well Scituate, which will be our moniker really for promoting and pursuing sort of more age-friendly.
Christmas.
Great.
You can see it again. It's, you know, I have several.
Stuffers.
I have a whole bag, but yet I couldn't find the bag. I only had 7, so if anyone doesn't get one, you already have one. There you go. So take one, take a look at the survey, and if you have an interest in being maybe part of the steering committee, then let me know, and I will include you in my next emails for our next meeting.
That I would be interested in doing.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any other business before we break and have some social time, something to eat? Do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I second.
Very good. Thanks everyone for coming. Have a happy holiday.
Mary, just so you know, before we even get up,
I
Mary
think the
has
master
some
plan
appetizers that she's putting out, a few
meeting the other
different
night.
appetizers.